Hi, this is Nell. I'm not sure if I had something to say about this piece at all. I name it Pride because, well, it's a proud girl, proudly part of a pride of big kittens in albino crocodile skin, which was kind of the only reason why I decided to paint this. I wanted to make an exercise on an animal with the skin of another animal, and this idea came out. Made 3 sketches for people to vote, received a lot of feedback from my Facebook personal profile as well as the people from Level Up. Thank you guys so much. Feedback is always appreciated. So I guess I will ramble a little bit about pride in itself. Do you consider yourself a prideful person? I've always struggled with the self-definition myself. I guess I am, but not really. I've never had a problem apologizing or admitting when I'm wrong. Admitting when I am wrong, however, comes with a little bit of a delay. I mean, the idea first needs to sink in, especially when it's a change of paradigm of which I am certain about beforehand. It takes a little bit of time to change gears and readjust my worldview accordingly. I recently had a discussion with a friend about evolution. He said organisms develop changes to adapt to the environment, and I said that was indeed what we were taught in school, Mexican schools at least, but it was wrong, since evolution is actually dumb luck. You have an organism that reproduces itself, and just like a photocopy and a photocopy of the photocopy and a photocopy of the photocopy of the photocopy, each copy of the genetic code comes with changes and errors. It's never 100% exactly as the original. Those variations cause changes. If those variations make you thrive on that environment, then you survive and pass your genes to the next generation. If not, then you die and your heritage gets lost forever. So basically, the main argument with my friend was, on one side, environment changes the genetic code since organisms develop changes to adapt to it, versus the genetic code already comes as it is and the environment is just a filter that separates the fittest and discards the less fit. I was really confident about my version because I actually believed the opposite one at first. Then I bumped into a Radiolab podcast where a scientist talked about the evolution as dumb luck version, and I remember that both the host of the show and myself, while listening, went, "Oh, I've been in the wrong all this time." So it imprinted deeply and got stored in my head as one of those fun facts that everybody believed wrong and stuff. So then, for some reason, the topic came out with my friend and we began this discussion. I was so sure of myself, I was so sure that I was going to enlighten his outdated views. But then we started doing research and found out that, on special conditions, radiation and certain interactions with bacteria can actually modify the genetic code. And those are environment elements. So at the end can in fact modify your genes and trigger changes in evolution. I owe my friend a pink desert as compensation, and took me a bit to get to the point where I had to admit I was wrong. So it does take time, especially when it turns somewhat personal, but once everything cools down, for me at least, it's quite easy to come back and say, "Hey, remember this? I was wrong," or "I want to apologize for this and that, and sorry for what I did," and so. Apologies are less tricky. My only rule for those are that the apology needs to be authentic. This whole apologizing for the sake of convenience, I really don't do. When you don't really believe your words and you are just apologizing in order to make your life easier, I just can't. I can see the practical benefits for doing it, but I dread to self-label as a hypocrite. If I'm going to apologize, it's going to be because I am genuinely sorry. This reminds me an incident I had earlier in the year where an apology was expected from me, which actually never came because, well, up to date, I don't think I did anything wrong. I think I know now what caused for people to get mad at me, which was something I didn't realize at the moment, so I can admit I did make that mistake, but that's as far as I can go. It was a story of writer versus illustrator, on which I sided with the writer, and that caused for a bunch of people to be royally pissed off at me. In a nutshell, from my very own point of view, this is what happened. Writer has contract with big publisher, which hires illustrator to make the cover of the book. Illustration is beautiful, but unrepresentative. Writer complains to publisher about it. Publisher ignores writer. Writer rants on social media. Illustrator sees rant, gets offended, and rants back. Our community shitstorms on writers' social media, and that's the state of affairs when I bump into the situation. I was happily scrolling my Facebook when I bumped into this cryptic message saying something along the lines of, "Oh, when you realize a person is a total asshole, but I am so happy the community is brought together by this and we are united against mistreatment," or something along those lines. I was like, "Oh, what is this about?" So I wrote, "Oh, what is this about?" And the person who posted this status sent me the link to the rant of the illustrator, which linked on itself to the rant of the writer. After reading both rants and lurking on the comments on previous posts, I realized the writer was not calling the cover awfully bad for the artwork on itself, but because it made some important omissions. It changed the iconic dressing code of the protagonist, and I reckon it also depicts a character that was already dead in the book. I mean, it's like if you hired Donatella Versace to design your wedding dress and she made you the most gorgeous wedding dress ever, but 2 sizes too small, you know? So I came back to the original post where I originally commented and say the claims of the writer seemed legit to me and seemed like a witch hunt / mob mentality, which sent a sea of angry people my way. And soon enough, I was trying to explain myself to a dozen angry people calling me a troll, a stirrer, a troublemaker, and so forth. And I was, honest to God, very puzzled at the reaction of these people because, I mean, how come they all can't see what's going on? Or am I missing something? Or what is it? Later on, way too late for my own good, I realized that the person of the status I commented on and many of the people lashing out at me for my take were actually friends with the illustrator. And everything made sense. I mean, that was my mistake. All along, I thought that some drama was happening over there, far away in the distance, and we were all spectators with our shiny opinions doing some recreational exchange, you know? But nope, I happened to enter to the very heart of the illustrator's friends circle, which is kind of like coming to the Manchester United cheerleader squad shouting, "Go Barcelona!" I mean, of course I came across as a stirrer. Another thing that didn't sit well with that particular group was that I came to the writer's page and left him a message letting him know not all illustrators were mad at him, that some of us saw the story with a different lens and were trying to talk to our angry peers to calm them down. And I made the mistake of using the words, "I want to apologize in the name of the illustration community," which sounded like, I realized after I was point that out, that it sounded like I do represent the whole community and not like it was my intention, which was the angry group won't apologize, so I will, in order for illustrators not to come across as a lashing group as a whole. So I got more backlash for that one. And even more when the writer replied, thanking me for the support and asking me about my availability to reach later for a gig, which was seen by the angry group and quickly twisted into Nell opportunistically stole the client of the original illustrator. Which I didn't. The only thing I did was to write a supportive message on a Facebook post and not rejecting a gig offer. I mean, because not rejecting job offers is kind of my default mode. Isn't it every illustrator? I mean, many people were writing to him that no illustrator will never ever work with him again, so maybe they kind of push him to make that offer. Why will I reject to work with him when I was against the backlash from the very start? I mean, I'm being consistent with my beliefs, folks. Maybe I can be prideful in that sense. My beliefs and core values are hardly moved by peer pressure, especially strangers on the internet. They can change with good reasoning and a convincing argument, but with the menace of dropping me from a certain group? Not really. My values define my tribe, not the other way around. If my values and the values of my tribe do not align, I do not search for new values. I search for a new tribe. And at 7 billion people a world, there are many options to choose from. So, if it ever happens to you, don't sweat it. You will find a group of like-minded people who will appreciate you as you are, warts and all. I promise you, you will. Just make sure for it not to be just words, and you will be set. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.